Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Sera Talks, an initiative of VLF Africa, where we have open dialogues and intergenerational conversation with seasoned leaders in business, in private sector, in the public sector, and even in the non-profit space, just to glean on their wisdom and experiences that they have gathered over time. Today, my guest is a gentleman who would be well known to many of you. He started off his career as a journalist in the various media houses here in Kenya, before being tapped to serve the then President Uhuru Kenyatta in State House. After doing his tour of duty in public service, he transitioned back into private sector and served as the Chief of Staff for Standard Media Group. Today, he is a member of the steering committee for the Public Service Emerging Leaders Fellowship that is co-run by Emerging Leaders Fellowship here in Nairobi. He is presently serving as the regional director for the Chief of Staff Association. Laban-Cliff Onserio, welcome to Sera Talks.
Intro. Thank you so much, Zako. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
What does the Chief of Staff do?
Wow, good question. I never knew that until I served under the former Chief of Staff to the fourth president, that's President Uhuru Kenyatta. I was honored and glad to have very close mentorship, having seen what the right hand of a president does.
Okay.
So, I mean, literally, the person who runs the scene behind the scene, be like ensuring that whatever the president has kind of forged to do, it actually happens. So I thought, wait a minute, how best if we had this also within private sector, within the NGO world, and within the military circles. So all this is literally something that I've picked up, and I honestly enjoy to just kind of introduce the Chief of Staff role in the various sectors. I must say quite established in government, but we're seeing how we can have more Chiefs of Staff in military, the NGO space, within the startup space, and in private sector. So quite an interesting one, I must say.
Is that why you are now a student at the National Defense College?
Yes. It was very targeted just to, there's a discipline that you get by studying in the military circles. Strategy, which is a word largely used within private sector, actually, emanates from the military circles. Strategios. How do you just ensure you get things done? And I think to get that discipline that is infused in private sector actually, has its foundation within the military circles. So it's really great to see how the generals, the lieutenant colonels behave in the class setting, and just trying to apply the same within the my various works.
That must be quite a scene to behold.
Very, very nice. I think the National Defense College under the National Defense University, with many other colleges under it, there is just a lot of information that goes around. Just 4 years old, but has a lot of attention, both locally and abroad. Everyone wants to join the National Defense University.
I too want to join.
So the interest is there. Of course, some courses are limited to the disciplined forces. But there's some courses that are available to government practitioners and civilians. Maybe something also our fellows can pick up.
Of course,
I mean, if you have a personal number and it's active, you definitely can apply to actually join one of the courses that are very exclusive to the civil servants, the public servants. So I know we have a rich network of friends in government. Perhaps as a way of personal development, this is definitely a course that I would really encourage anyone to just jump onto.
Most corporates have Chief of Staff. Whether they are tech firms or even industry or food manufacturing, what's the challenge for it to get root here?
First is understanding that the Chief of Staff is, the right hand. There can be the executive PA within the CEO's office, but the Chief of Staff then becomes like some sort of a strategy lead. That has been quite interesting to actually see the uptick. In UN, they call them what? Technical advisors, special assistants. So maybe it's also the name and how it's, how it's looked at within those circles. So I mean, pretty interesting, to be honest. I am so happy with the ones, the CEOs who've taken up, or the principals. I mean, cabinet secretaries right now are really employing a lot more.
Yeah.
You've seen that in government. They call them advisors, you know, but they actually do sort of a chief of staff role. The idea is just to support principals, to see how a leader is not really blindsided, or you just don't go into a meeting not knowing, you know, who is who on your left and who's who on your right. So the chief of staff is just really the person who just kind of sees, you know, beyond the corners, especially for the leader, and just helps you become tick. So yes, I know it's common in the States, but right now people still view it as what, a HR role.
And I was coming to that.
Yeah, so it's not really HR, you know. It has elements of HR, but let me just say it's just some sort of a balance between the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I first discussed it somewhere, chief of staff in the private sector, and someone mentioned that the first thing that would happen, their first fear was the role conflict between the chief of staff and the head of HR, or the CEO's executive assistant.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Wow, good question. So they are all intertwined, I would say. They're very, very intertwined. The CEO executive assistant will handle sort of the operation level, but then the chief of staff will handle more of the strategy side onto it. But then again, there's a lot of a symbiotic, a sort of a close relationship between the two. But again, I mean, as we go along, things are changing. There are lots of executive PAs who want to graduate into becoming chiefs of staff. There are lots of chiefs of staff who get employed into becoming chief operations officer. The other day, a former chief of staff for the UN Habitat just got appointed as a special advisor, you know, in the county government, in the national government, in a ministerial position. So I think as you go along, you're just seeing a lot of, you know, different opportunities that a chief of staff can really employ.
One of my all-time best series is The West Wing. Don't know if you watched The West Wing.
Yes. Good description of it. Yep. 100%.
And Leo McGarry is quite the guy. The chief of staff.
And it just shows you now the behind the scene. Of course, from the outside, looks very flowery. Looks like, oh goodness, this is a good opportunity.
Close to power.
But you can see the behind the scene, you know, connections, the meetings before the meetings, the phone calls before the presidential phone calls, the negotiations, the lobbying. So all this is actually very, very critical, to be honest. Do
you think that is the practice even here? Do you think that is how it is practiced even within our jurisdiction? Now that the same has gone into county governments,
yes. To a very, very, very great extent. It's just that now maybe it's not as defined, so you end up now being a jack of all trades. I mean, it's not saying that if the governor wants you to kind of pick up a call or do a very small errand, that you'll say, oh no, that's not my job, or that's the PA's job, or that's the security manager's job. No, it's just giving you an opportunity to say, you know what, should you be given a chance? Try it this way.
In yet another series again, Madam Secretary, I think in a conversation either with one of her children or addressing students in a university, she's asked what the chief of staff does. And because she doesn't want to go into the technical definition, she gives a response, and one of the students retorts and says, so basically, the chief of staff is the one who knows where the bodies are buried.
Oh, yes.
Is that a nice
about it? Well, that's quite gross, but it's true. And maybe we'll even hush about it. It just shows you the confidentiality, the respect, the behind the scene trust. Knowing that, you know, the principal will always have your back. I think that is just different, you know, knowing that, you know what, I know my boss, if I sign this check or if I sign this, you know, document, like I know for sure I'm doing it on behalf of my boss, and he would actually, or she would actually approve of it. So having that level of trust is quite critical, you know. So I'm saying a lot of behind the scene because I'm saying confidentiality. You know, maybe more reason why I'm in military. I think I was coming from a newsroom and now going into military school. You now know the things to talk about and those not to talk about.
Yes, yes.
But from a very strategic perspective,
Absolutely.
because some things require, they're actually a security risk.
I see.
You know, over information is actually a security risk, something I didn't even know, you know. Well, when you're out there doing your news article, perhaps you might just feel free to break the news
Want
and
to put
divulge
everything out
everything out there.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not knowing that, of course, you know, you can have an enemy, you have, you know, people you need to protect.
Yes.
So all these things, I mean, they're really, really critical. The learning never stops.